everything through philanthropy, so anything you feel motivated to donate, always help us keep the materials and the people that are running these events and organizing. Everybody works pretty much pro bono. We have a director of this series, which is a part-time person, which is Mara, and has shouldered everything. A round of applause for Mara and the work that she's been doing. Thank you, Mara. I know that nothing of what we really do is in your job description. She's also an educator in the clinic. This was a role that was transitioned, and a lot of the things that we do and have generated are, when we are listening to the patients, are trying to map and say, hey, here's a QR code. You might be interested in this webinar. You might be interested in connecting with this organization. You might be interested in this camp. This may be for your child what you're looking for. And where do you get the resources? From you. The families have brought up what they found. Their therapists are in the series. This is not just a hospital-based driven effort. This is a community-based effort, and that's why if you go to YouTube, we have more than 40 webinars at the moment, and you can see from the titles that we kind of cover the needs as people tell us what they are. So if there are things that you can find here, we need to also hear, and we want to hear who did you find that, if you have already the experience this was successful, who did you find that you're working with that could be also helpful to educate the families. There's one thing that I believe, and I always say it, most of the life of a child happens, of course not in the hospital, hopefully, maybe in school, and not so much, but it's really home in the community. So if we can become a little bit of a neurologist, a little bit of a developmental pediatrician, a little bit of a physical therapy, speech therapist, a little bit of a physiatrist, then you can provide through your family and your community a lot of the resource and the abilities and the opportunities and the adaptations that the kid needs just to thrive. Because there is one thing the brain does, it learns by experience. So our job is to enable experience. And this event is Play to Thrive. We are not serious, we're not gonna lecture. And the next thing we're gonna do, with that said, is introduce our panelists, which, because we are talking about life, by the way, this is my son Nico over here with the Mighty Pops on the phone. And I wanna introduce the panel, which the idea of this panel is to share life experiences as a young woman, Gretchen, and two young men. And here we have Matthew and Scotty. And we really thank you for taking the time to share your experience of having had brain injury and thriving with it. And then it's open to really share and to ask questions or even share your perspectives if something what they're saying prompts in you the wish to share. Always with a lot of respect, always, this is not a medical symposium, so we're not giving you any medical indications of what you need to be doing with your child is our disclosure. But we really want to learn from each other. This is what we're trying to do in all of these events. So with that, I'll pass it on to
And then the walk after.
Oh, and Mara keeps me on track. And the last announcement is after we finish the panel, we're all gonna be doing like a little parade around the bay. So if you wanna join us, if you grab your bike, your scooter, if you're gonna grab one of the adapted bikes, scooters, be our guests and let's all ride around. And with that, we're gonna leave them and I'll pass the microphone to Gretchen.
Thank you, Dr. Mussolino. My name is Gretchen Murphy. I am the proud mother of Owen Murphy, who's just turned 9 yesterday. I was fortunate enough to meet Dr. Mussolino when Owen was born 9 years ago yesterday at Mass General Hospital. And when we got news that he had had a stroke right around birth, you can imagine I had never heard that before. I didn't know that there were other families that had also experienced a similar fate. I felt like I was fumbling around in the dark for a light switch on how to navigate from the day that we left the hospital up through today. So there's been tons of things that I've learned. I've gone on a lot of blind coffee dates with other moms that I've met, some fantastic moms that are dealing with very similar circumstances that we did. And I partnered with Dr. Mussolino because I said it would have been great had I had somebody right off the bat because I really didn't know what I was doing. most parents don't know what they're doing when they leave the hospital, but especially when you have a child that's had a stroke. So I have learned a ton, and I've met some of you today. I hope I can meet some more and share experiences. Would love to hear your experiences, but just be open to talking to people, meeting people, and helping people out. And with that, I'll turn it over to Matthew.
Hi everyone, my name is Matthew Malley. I am a senior at Boston College. I'm about 9 days away from graduation. I'm a major in history and political science, and then I think part of the reason I was brought here was I was connected with Jordan Wu, who's in the back here. I've spent the past 4 years as a manager with the BC men's basketball team. So I've spent, I was a manager my freshman year, and then going into my junior year, I was made the head manager. So we have about 12 managers, and I spent the past 4 years just kind of helping coaches with whatever they need. If they need us to wipe the floor, that's what we're doing. If it's, working the scoreboard, if it's, whatever it is they need to do to make their operation run more smoothly, that's been my role. I was diagnosed at about 9 months old, so when I was about 6, 7 months old, my parents started to suspect there was something not quite right physically. I was kind of favoring my left side, my right side, and the doctors kind of assured them nothing's wrong, just continue about, sometimes kids favor one side or the other, which I now know is not true. And about another month or so went by, my mom in particular was like, there's something not quite right physically. And they said, well, we can take an MRI if you think that's what we should do. My parents were like, well, you tell us. And they took an MRI, and they're like, I think, brains are symmetrical, your son's is not. So we think what happened here is your son had a stroke. And so, I've had a lot of experience. I've been lucky enough my whole life to kind of have people around me that have kind of brought me into the circle and allowed me to kind of, be who I want to be. Sports was something for me from a young age that I was very, very interested in. And I was lucky enough to kind of have people around me that have kind of been able to make that possible for me. So whether that's, I played baseball for a long, long time. I played basically one-handed. So if anyone's ever seen Jim Abbott, basically you catch the ball with one hand, you kind of take the glove off, put it in your arm, and then switch hands and throw the ball back. And that was something I did for a long time. And, it was definitely, meeting, people, and some people have a lot of questions about it, but I felt like over time I was able to kind of, just get you, understand that this is a part of who I am. And over the past few years, I've kind of learned, I want other people to be able to have the experiences that I've been lucky enough to have. And so about 3 or 4 months ago, I went public with my story for the first time on the news. And I was connected with a lot of people kind of in this realm, and it's been really eye-opening for me. And I want it to be used as a resource for any questions that anybody might have.
How you guys doing? My name is Scotty Moreau. I'm 17 years old. I go to Belmont Hill School in Belmont, Mass. I'm from Kingsborough, Mass. Around 6 months ago, November 20th to be exact, I had a stroke very soon. Now you're looking at me, you would never know, obviously. I'm lucky in that sense, I guess you could say. But I'm blind permanently in my right eye. Up until then, I was a very active kid, played football, wrestled, very serious wrestler, nationally competing. My freshman year of high school, I was a match away from being an All-American. For those of you, that's top 8 in the country. Played baseball, and yeah, so I'm just up here. When it happened to me, I first said, how can I make an impact on others who might be going through the same thing as me? And I think that's an important thing to me. I've always been the kind of kid who doesn't make it about myself, and I think that's a big reason why I'm here. I know there's a lot of you guys who are going through stuff, and that's the reason why I'm here today.
Questions?
I was just curious if you had any experience in being
So the question for those that didn't hear is what kind of experience do I have dealing with the school systems? And I would say that That's probably been the most challenging part of our journey to date is the schools. We, at least personally, we started with early intervention up until my son was age 3, and then had to partner with the school systems to get him the services. We were actually denied right away at 3, and I had to go back to the school again at age 4, had him retested, and then, wouldn't you know it, all of a sudden we had all sorts of services. So you have to be tenacious with the schools. I leverage a network. My best friend from high school is a speech language pathologist, so I talked to her. I leaned heavily on the early intervention services that we had, because we had physical therapy, we had speech, we had occupational therapy. So get into the schools, don't take no for an answer. There's also advocates out there that obviously cost some money, but I know families have been successful with that. There's also, every public school system has what we call CPAC, the Special Education Parent Advisory Council. I recommend you reach out to those in your community. They've been a good resource to us as well. But it's a battle. I won't lie. It hasn't been easy.
Gretchen, since we have in the audience, Mayor, I hear the voice from the parents, and I go to the schools too to try to transmit what their needs and the quality and the capacities of the kids sometimes are, because the school doesn't have the medical records guide. So there is, by definition, a disconnect between what your doctors are saying and what the school needs to know. And it's the parent job, you like it or not, to be able to communicate appropriately, and that means knowing a little bit of what the school can really do and what is the mission of the school and what they're mandated legally to do. So Mayor, if you don't mind, if I throw you in the ring, we have special education. This is the beauty of our community. We have everybody. We have the therapists, we have the parents, we have the patients, we have the advocates. So Mayor, can you tell us a little bit of what are the things that a parent, and I'm gonna ask it, you're a baby, you have early interventions. And the first challenge is how you go from early interventions to the school system.
Yes.
And then what is that transition, and then also the recommendations that you give to parents.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you already have early intervention, it can be slightly easier. I'll never say easy, but make sure you are going through early intervention as soon as possible. And by 2 years, 9 months, they are required to start that evaluation process so that you can have services in place for your child by the age of 3. It does require an evaluation, and it is up to the school to make what they call an eligibility determination. But as Patty said, one of the biggest things you can do is provide every piece of documentation around how your child is interacting with the world. The more you can do to show them the impact the stroke is having, or any additional information, is going to make their job easier. The majority of the people sitting at that table and leading that discussion have an education degree, not a medical degree. They cannot necessarily make a predictive determination, but your doctors can support in that. And so it does sometimes take more than you'd like, but schools in general are really excited to support your child as long as they understand the impact, and sometimes the educational testing doesn't do that as effectively or as efficiently as we'd like the system to do it. So I will say, from the school-based perspective, the system inside the school is fairly broken, and the tools we have are not always ideal. So the more the family brings to us, the more we can do to support your child. So, and you just said about early intervention. Oh, the forms, yes. So one of the most important things is that put everything in writing. So you're emailing your either school principal, director of special education, team chairperson, putting it in writing, requesting that evaluation. Early intervention, if you have a young child, should do this for you, but they don't always. You're relying on that person and the back office staff to have your child's exact birthday and that information, know your school district, and they don't always. So it's on you to do that. Put it in writing, say I want that evaluation. They owe you a consent within 5 school days, business days, to get that evaluation started, and then you should have an eligibility determination and a full evaluation of all areas of concern within 30 business days. If you do this over the summer, obviously, you're gonna have to wait till the school year starts because most schools don't run on the summer schedule. But that is something that is available to you, and you should continue to put everything in writing because that will ensure that you have the record keeping you need in case you do need to pursue advocacy or take it to the next level with anyone at the school district. Did I answer anything? Any other ones I missed?
Fantastic. I think it's important to see.
I think this is a critical thing. The school has a lot of the services that the kid needs, and the most important thing, again, after home, is probably the place that they spend most of their life in. So you want them to know how to empower your child to learn. And if you need, you ask your doctors to hop on these meetings. Their kids are very complex. Their brain injuries are very complex. Their behavioral problems are complex. You can ask always the doctor that you feel understands best the case to really talk to the school directly. And we do it offline or we do it during the meetings. And they are always open to do that.
I would add to a neuropsych exam is also very helpful because that also helps the schools identify what services the child needs too. So we were able to depend on that as well.
I can add a quick thing about that too, just to avoid any future frustration on this front. If you bring them the world's most perfect neuropsych, they still have to do school-based testing. So just expect that and know that it's a part of the process that they are required to do. It's not because they're trying to argue with that neuropsych report, but they actually need school-based. They're legally required to have that to substantiate any decision-making. So just expect that even if you bring that, you'll have more testing to go through, unfortunately, but it is an important part of the process.
Hi, thank you so much, you guys. So we have kind of the opposite problem, I want to say. Someone from in here had a stroke 3 years ago. Prior to that, she was in all mainstream classes. That's her identity, athletics, all of that. So our problem now is inclusion. I'm a speech pathologist who used to work with teens who had strokes and head injuries. Our private speech pathologist, Tracy's right here, who's been working with Maria for 2.5 years. And our biggest issue for the past 2 years has been trying to convince the school that Maria's best chance for stroke recovery is to be in mainstream classes, the language-rich environment, the diversity of ideas, being back with pre-stroke peers. And we've had a very hard time with them allowing Marina to go back into the mainstream classes. So I'm wondering if any of you had that issue or not, and what you recommend.
I don't have that experience per se.
Yeah, I think those decisions can be really, really tricky, and I do think there's an important piece here to remind the school they have a legal and an ethical mandate to put a child in the least restrictive environment, and pushing very hard for them to demonstrate that she cannot do things there. And I know that sounds hard to say, but they have to prove to you, you don't have to prove to them. And so demonstrating that she's making progress is important where she is, and saying now it's time to try the least restrictive environment, and making them constantly show you the progress monitoring and really defining what progress looks like for her, and pushing hard. And you do have the right to continue to do that, and there's a lot of steps you can take to kind of force their hand if needed. And so there are avenues. I know families do struggle with that, and it really can vary by school district whether or not they push kids more or less, and building a strong relationship with your school team can be really important in helping them know what your goals are and getting there together.
Thank you.
One quick thing, the expertise that the therapist that really works with your child has acquired by working day to day with a kid is not immediately available to the school. So one of the things, and I know she does it, is to connect your therapist. So mostly when it's come to communication, it's very important the kid can communicate. So if there is a specific type of communication style or things that are working on your therapist or at home, you take videos, you take pictures, you put them on an email, and you make sure that the therapist answers back that email. So I'm saying this because it's the best way to give them tools. they do not have the expertise necessarily in that specific type of communication many times, and also in your child. And if someone already did that road, share it with them. It's gonna go a long way, they're gonna appreciate it. There's always an attitude on how we share things, so the best way is to try to say, hey, I really would love you to have this because I think it might be helpful and I wanna hear your perspective. And it can go a long way, and you always have humans on the other side that may not be on a good day either. But share your therapist expertise and your expertise with the schools and with anyone else that interacts with the kid is very important.
Hi, thank you so much. Just everybody who's here and sharing, this is so special. My son and I, Hudson, are here today. We're from Concord, New Hampshire. My wife and I are up against a bit of a wall right now, and we're being told there's like only one advocate that people know of as we think about some other options for school. Is there like a network? My wife and I just don't want to start digging into the World Wide Web and going down a dark hole of a network where we can get a better sense of maybe we think that there's more advocates. Everybody's just telling us about this one advocate, and she's like, I'm booked for 3 years. And so, but we'd like to find an advocate. Just wondering if you know of any.
What's the mass group?
So there's an organization called, if you look online, it's an organization called COPAA. To be honest, I forget what the C and the O is, but it's Parent Attorneys and Advocates is the PAA.org, and they actually have lists of advocates and people by specialty, and have a lot of resources for parents and attorneys and advocates who are exclusively trained in supporting families, and so it's a great resource.
Council of Parents?
Yes, council, that's it, yes, Council of Parent Attorneys and Advocates.
Thank you.
Yes, of
Thank
course.
you.
Other questions?
I have a
A question for Scotty and Matthew. What can we do better from the hospital side? And I'm talking about clinic visits, or when you were in the hospital, if you were in the hospital, or if you've been connected now with a community of other stroke drivers and survivors, what do you think is missing that we should be hearing about?
I would say for me, kind of the more like psychological side of it. So like obviously doctor's appointments are full of like physical metrics and they're seeing how things are progressing physically. But I think like taking a step back for a second and just saying like this is all happening to somebody who's, you know, for me it was my whole life, for you it was a year ago. Like this is happening to somebody who's at an age where they're growing a lot and there's a lot happening around them. So kind of like taking a minute just to check in and like see how are you doing mentally and like what are some of the things that are tough for you right now, some of the things that are going well for you right now, just kind of looking at it in a more holistic point of view, I'd say from my perspective.
I'll share a little story. The night my stroke happened, I went to Mass Eye and Ear, and within the first 10 minutes, the guy that looked in my eyes said, oh yeah, you're permanently blind forever in your right eye. And at the time, it was probably the worst news I'd gotten of my life. And so just to touch on that, I feel like understanding if a kid's mature enough at a point, and obviously in my shoes, I thought I was a mature kid, but hearing that, I obviously wasn't ready to hear yet. So a little bit of like censorship to that point, I think can be good for a child. And yeah, I think just like more censorship, honestly. Like that was honestly the worst experience I ever had to deal with.
I have a question about being a manager for a sports team. So Marina used to play field hockey. She's a field hockey player, and we're still very good friends with a high school field hockey coach. And she said that when Marina gets to high school, she's in 2nd grade now, that she's welcome to be a manager for the field hockey team. So, but we have, physical disabilities, can't wash the floor, or anything like that. So what would you recommend that, I don't know what a manager does,
I would say talk to the coach about like some of the things that you would like to do, and like for me it was kind of just like I did it in high school too, and I've done it in college. Like it was kind of, when I got involved the first time, like I got connected through a teacher that was one of the assistant coaches at my high school, and he knew about me and the things that happened to me, and it was kind of like, you want to make this happen? Let's make this happen. Let's like talk together about what are some of the things that you're good at, some of the things that you can do for us, and then from there we can kind of go. And for me, like right now, like I'm one of 12 managers. So like wiping the floor is not something that I'm really strong at, so I kind of rely on other people to fill in those gaps, and then the things that I'm better at, the things that I'm more suited to me, those are kind of the things that I focus on. So it's really just a matter of finding the things that you can succeed at and benefit from.
Thank you so much.
Question in the back.
I have a comment, statement, or speech or something to give, and it's perfect after Scotty spoke. I'm with Smile Mass, which is a nonprofit out of Metro West that provides recreation, education, and vacation opportunities for families raising children and adults with severe disabilities. But prior to that, I'm a book author. I've written about 70 books, most of them children's books about the disabled, and most of them are sports oriented. First of all, I recognized you immediately from your news story when I walked in. But there's one story I told earlier today, and I think this is a story that I'm going to tell to Scotty, but everybody needs to hear and listen to. I used to work with Dick and Rick Hoyt, who were the father-son marathon triathlon team. And we had a gentleman on our team from Canada. His name was Maury Ripley. And Maury was in a car accident years ago. He hit a moose head on, and well, Maury won. And when he was in the hospital, he was paralyzed from the neck down. And the doctor said to the doctor, I want to run the Boston Marathon. And the doctor said to him, kid, you need to keep your dreams real. So when Maury ran his first Boston Marathon, he took his medal and he brought it to the doctor and he said, don't you ever tell anybody to keep their dreams real. He's now run about 60 marathons across the country. When I see Maury, he doesn't look paralyzed. His hands don't quite work right, but he was paralyzed from the neck down and recovered. So my message to you, and I'm not trying to sell books here, but it's the message in most of my books, is don't ask why me, ask why not me. Things happen, I hate the expression, but things happen for a reason, and you can either roll in a ball and feel defeated, or you can take what's happened to you and your family and use it as a rallying point for either your own family or to motivate and inspire others. So it's not a death sentence, it's just something that happened that's very difficult, and hopefully, definitely, you can all recover and raise to the heights that you were intended to be raised.
Thank you. I saw some kids raise their hand in the back. Can we get I think the boys in the back. Bert, is that Bert? What's your question, Bert?
How many kids have you seen with spokes?
I'm going to turn it over to the kids up here.
I'm gonna be honest, I've never met another kid in my life with a pediatric stroke until today. So, it's a new experience for me.
So I've met like one or two. My uncle got married to a lady who also had a nephew with the same thing, and that was kind of I got to meet him, and it was kind of the first time I felt like I had met somebody who had been through something similar to me, and that's kind of why I'm here, because I feel like this is a small community, but I feel like if I was at the age that you guys are in the back, where I was able to meet older people and people my own age and people who had been through kind of what I've been through, it would definitely have benefited me, and I hope to do the same or do that for you guys.
So kind of adding on to what if there's something that like you like as someone who had a pediatric stroke, if there's something you want to do or you're interested in doing, go ahead and do it. Like, try to do it. Go, like, do the things you have to do in order to do that thing. Because, like I play ice hockey, and it's not, and I tell people that, and it's like, wow, love it, and I'm just like, I was really interested in doing it, I really wanted to do it, and so I got there, and now I play ice hockey, so like, don't let your disability stop you from like, trying to like, do the things you are interested in doing. And also, like if you have, like, therapy or like physical or occupational therapy, you can incorporate that into the things you're interested in. Like, for example, like when I was younger, I wanted to learn how to catch with my hockey glove because it's on my right hand, my affected hand. And so we incorporated that into my occupational and constraint therapy. And I was interested in it because it was something I wanted to do. And then it was also like a form of therapy, and it helped me strengthen my hand.
I think, Echo, thank you. This is a really, really important point. I think it's very important that we all proactively think about how to do any therapy with the motivation of the kid. So, what are they interested in? And there are therapists that are awesome at this and picking up right away, and they sync with the kid. But we're all humans, and there are some therapists that are not going to have that relationship with the kid. So, just go for it. And I love, Echo, you brought in, bring the therapies to the things you love, and make the therapies work for you. If you're going for trying sports or doing something, or you want to do even craft stuff, you work on that with them. And I think this is a really important point, and most people are open to this.
I will add too with Dr. Wishart, we just met with him, and I said, we're involved in a lot of sports, and we have to fit physical therapy in. And Owen signed up for a strength and conditioning class on a weekly basis, and he said, Gretchen, he doesn't need physical therapy if he's doing strength and conditioning. So there's other ways, and in the strength and conditioning class, he's also taking it with some friends. So now he's in his community with his friends, getting what he would be getting from physical therapy. So there's thinking outside the box around some of this is also helpful too.
This boy in the back after you.
I would say too, like, make it, like, what are some of the things that, especially occupational therapy, what are some of the things that, like, you're struggling with in the moment? So, like, for me, for a long time, like, cutting food was something that was really difficult. So, like, in some of my appointments, we would actually practice techniques to allow me to cut easier and, like, hold the fork in one hand, knife in the other. Like, think of, like, keep a, like, kind of a list in the back of your head of what are some of the things that are challenging, and then when you go to these appointments, work on those and, like, try to find tactics that allow you to do those things.
Okay, in the back.
Do you drive? If you drive, what challenges do you have driving?
Well, with my visual impairment, I obviously had some trouble driving. You need both eyes to drive, that's what they said, but I got one and I drive pretty good. So, back to the topic of occupational therapy. I did occupational therapy for not too long, but I did go a couple times to just assure myself that I can drive. And I'd say the biggest thing is just like building up a confidence in yourself, showing yourself that you can do anything. Like what Echo said, like your strokes shouldn't define who you are. You should be able to do whatever you want to do. So I just say that.
Yeah, driving for me, I definitely, when I got to that age, it was kind of, like, it always was in the back of my parents' head, I think, of like, okay, eventually you're going to be 16, this is going to be something that we're going to have to address. But I think working with, like, for me, working with the driving school on, like, what are the things that I need to do this, like, obviously, not a stick shift, that's something that requires both hands, like, trying to figure out things that you might need to have addressed, and, like, you know, one of the options for me for a long time was like one of those like assault knobs that are on like the bottom of the steering wheel that kind of make it easier to drive one-handed. I ended up not liking that, but just kind of going through all the different options of like, let's try out 3-4 different things and then decide from there what we like.
Hello, talking about hope.
Could you talk after your stroke?
No,
For how long?
I think a year.
Over a year. Couldn't talk at all. And again, we were told, oh, maybe she'll never talk. Right, to your point. Somebody made a 20-second recording about the importance of what?
Hope.
Never taking hope.
Never take hope away.
Just want to play this 20 seconds. Here.
Wait.
Hi everybody, this is Marina. How are you doing? I'm doing good. I'm talking a lot, like all day long. I have an important message for future therapists. Never take hope away. Oh, one more time for the people in the back. Never take hope away. Never, ever. Bye.
Marina's a book author also, if anybody wants to look up her book.
Yeah, we have time for one more question because we want to go for the jaunt around LSAT. Actually, we've got 2 questions. Why don't you go?
Can you repeat the question?
Tell us about your friends.
Tell us about your friends. You want to go? Scotty, why don't you go? How's your friends? Where did you go?
Before I start, I just want to make a comment on your shirt. I love your shirt. I'm gonna have to get myself one of those. Very cool shirt you got on.
I had a stroke. What's your excuse?
I like it. And then friends, well, I'd say in my experience, it was very easy for me. I understand that maybe not everyone might have that experience, but my friends were very accepting of it. And I feel like it honestly made me closer with my friends in a way. My friends were there for me at a time where I was kind of in a bad place in my life. So I'd say just in that sense, your good friends are always there for you. And find who your good friends are and be around them.
I'd say be open with them because I feel like people respect, like people hear your story and hear what you've been through, like people respect that. And for me, like I know that like this year has been kind of a year where I've kind of strived to be more open about it. And like early in the year, I'm part of this group at BC, it's called Athletes in Action. It's like an athlete group for like once a week. And we kind of like share and talk about our own experiences about different things. And I had a couple of friends who particularly like, Matt, like, you need to talk about this more. Like you need to like tell your story to all of us because I know it and a couple of others know it, but it would be something that people would want to hear. And so like at one of the meetings, I basically just told like a 20-30 minute long story. And then 2 of them were such that they went upstairs at BC and told like some of our media people, like, you need to get this out into the public sphere. And then a couple months later, I ended up on CBS Boston. They did a feature on me. So I feel like leaning into the people that really want to hear your story and hear what you've been through, those are the people that you want to keep around.
Thank you.